Welcome everyone. It is noon, so we'll go ahead and get started here. I'm Christy Ganya. I'm a program manager with the Telehealth Rocks program. Telehealth Rocks is a federally funded program that focuses on school-based behavioral health, and we do this by working on social determinants, supporting school-based services, and telemetry and trainings like this one. So we're glad to have you here for the Ready to Learn Echo today, focused on building resilience kids and classrooms. I've got just a couple of housekeeping items for you. Your microphones have been muted. Feel free to unmute or use the chat to talk. This session is being recorded and we will share it with you afterwards. And then lastly, please put your first and last name visible on your Zoom screen so that we can track attendance. So with that, I will hand it off to Melissa Maris.
Thanks so much, Christy, and hello, everybody. Happy beginning of March. In our 22-23 school year. We're so excited that you are here with us again today. And I will be joined today by Evelyn Nelson. Stephanie is jaunting across Germany. I'm not sure what jaunting looks like, but that's what I'm going to imagine Stephanie and her partner doing. But we are very glad you are here today to talk about interpersonal connectedness and meaningful relationships, and excited to hear your all's questions and input as well. Also our coaching team, of course, and I think we have either one or both of our coaches here with us now, and certainly our telehealth team, Christy and Robert, always appreciate your all support. We can go to the next slide, Christy. So our hopes for today, we would love to hear how the last month has gone. We know February and March this time of year is particularly busy and challenging for many of us, and many of you all working in schools. So we'd love to hear how that went. We are going to focus today on the difference between effective and ineffective social support, and then talk about how that connects, of course, to what is happening in schools between the adults in our school communities and young people. We're going to talk through practical ways to support others, and then talk about how we can adapt that to the classroom. And if we can go to the next slide, Christy. Sorry, I forgot that last part. So project disclosure statement, we don't have any in terms of financial relationships. And in terms of mitigating potential bias, we are always striving to share the best of what we know from science and research with you. If you ever have questions about anything related to that, please reach out and ask. So if you have heard about something and someone has said this sounds like it's evidence-based, but you're not sure, those are the kinds of questions we love to field. If you have any questions about the research that kind of undergirds anything we're talking about, we would love to share even more of that with you. So please reach out if you have any questions around any of those pieces. And on the next slide, after the session, we will be sending the slides and the recording as soon as they're processed, and we are sending out certificates of attendance. You should have received yours from December 2022 for the first half, and then we'll be sending those out April of 2023, so just next month after our final session on April 12th. And again, if you don't have any questions, or if you have any questions that don't get answered today, please feel free to reach out to us, shoot us an email at that email address. Next slide. So resources. So hopefully you are familiar with the various resources that we pulled together connected to this Echo. If you haven't already, please join our Facebook group, and you can either scan the QR code or click on that link. And the team has really done a lovely job posting weekly fun facts, doing these welcoming Wednesdays, kind of answering questions, supporting those pieces. And so we would love for you to participate in that community if you haven't yet. We also have one-on-one individual coaching, and certainly a number of you all have already availed yourself of that support. So this is, you having a question, reaching out, and we have kind, smart people, hopefully, that are answering those questions, and we'll talk it through, problem solve. This is a great strategy to employ if you're listening to something that we talk about on this Echo, and it sounds neat, and you want to do it, but it's not entirely clear how you would do it in your role or where you work or with the friends you work with. that's a great time to reach out for coaching, and we can talk that through, brainstorm, and even check in again to see if those strategies are working. That's really an opportunity to try to make this really work for you in the work you do. And also, of course, sending out emails with resources, links, tips, and other pieces of information that hopefully can be useful for you. So as we get started today, we are going to do a grounding exercise. And so grounding, of course, is when we shift our attention to the present moment. And it really can be a powerful tool. And being in the present moment helps us with all kinds of things. We know that it has physiological benefits. It helps our body feel better and continue to develop and grow healthier. It helps our brains work better. Our brains are actually smarter when we are feeling grounded, when our body is in that good spot. Our brain is able to take in information in a different way. It also sticks more in our brain when we're in a calm, grounded place. And just recently, I was reading something from Mark Brackett, who does, and you all might recognize his name, he does the ruler work out of the Yale Emotion Lab. And he was talking about how this idea that we want to try for ourselves and also with others to shift to being emotion scientists rather than emotion judges. And that many of us come from a place that we are emotion judges, either for ourselves or other people. But then in thinking about grounding, I was thinking about how grounding really is a step towards kind of making sure that we're very fully present and as aware as possible so that we can be really good emotion scientists. And that's a part of the process of even becoming a good emotion scientist is, making sure that we are present and fully aware. And so definitely powerful work here. So as we get started with our grounding exercise, and if we go to the next slide, Christy, with the beautiful green tree, things are starting to sprout here, hopefully where you are as well. But we're going to do a root grounding exercise. So just like a tree's roots, we are all connected through our passion to help others and through this ready to learn community. So let's start by being in a comfortable position, sitting where you are. Feel free to turn your camera off or leave it on. So in this comfortable position, you're going to place your feet flat on the ground. So as we're doing that, notice your soles and the sensations you feel. Notice how your feet feel with the connection they have made. Rest your arms gently by your side and scan your body slowly for areas of tension, areas of unrest or stress. Maybe your head or neck is tight. Maybe you notice your shoulders are held high. Let go of any of those knots in your stomach or in your heart. Relax your arms, your hands, relax your legs. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. Just relax and notice this sensation as you focus on how your feet are connected with the ground. Now notice your breathing. Is it fast and labored? Maybe it's already slow and steady. Just take a moment to become aware of your breathing. We'll begin focus on our breathing. And let's do this 3 times. So breathe in deep, breathe out, breathe in with awareness, breathe out with strength and purpose. And this last time, breathe in awareness, pulling the breath into your stomach, feeling your rib cage and lungs expand. Now breathe out, pushing the air out of your lungs, out of your nose, out with strength. And as we continue to breathe in awareness and breathe out strength and purpose, feel your feet on the ground and imagine roots stretching through your legs and down into the ground, just like a tree. Notice how your feet extend deep, deep into the ground, deep into the core of the earth. You may notice you have very thick roots that firmly pull you down, roots that connect you to the energy and strength of the earth. You may notice you have some thinner roots that spread out to cover more area, ensuring more security and connection. Now breathe up through those roots, move your breath from the sole of your feet up through your legs. Feel the breath move through your legs, up through the core of your body. Let your tree grow up through your ribs and shoulders. And with your out breath, relax your arms and neck. Feel the in-breath in your throat and let it expand into your head, relaxing your brain, your forehead, your thoughts. Imagine with each in-breath, you are extending the roots up to the crown of your head. Feel your energy move from the soles of your feet up through your head and into the sky. And with each in-breath, notice your awareness shift to the present moment. With each out-breath, release all the tensions in your body and negative thoughts in your mind. With your next in-breath, feel the connection and groundedness to the earth. With your out-breath, gently release the stress. Let it go into the air, let it go into the sky. From the roots deep in the center of the earth, draw energy up to the crown of your head. If you get distracted, just notice your thoughts, then let them go. Accept your distractions, then draw your attention back to the soles of your feet, your roots strong and connected. Notice your breath, notice the energy you draw from the core of the earth. There's abundant energy. And as you breathe out, let your stress escape into the atmosphere. Continue to breathe deeply, pull the energy from the center of the earth, feeling it energizing your body. And feel your out breath releasing the tensions and any thought about the past or future that you carry. Continue to notice your connection with the ground and connection to others. Notice how you feel present and aware in this moment. And when you are ready, come on back to us, begin to wiggle your toes, keep breathing in deep from your roots, from the soles of your feet, and pull in that last bit of energy the earth has to offer. Allow this energy to spread throughout your body and allow your stress to be released from the crown of your head. So nice grounding activity. Hopefully we can be present and connected to ourselves and to each other. And again, this idea that all of these kinds of grounding activities, and there are a lot of different kinds of grounding activities, can be useful with any population. Things that we can do with other grown-ups in our school community, and certainly ways that we can adapt this to use with young people in all kinds of different ways. So if we go to the next slide, Christy. So we are going to pop a word cloud link into the chat, and we would love for you to check in about how you're feeling right now. So click on that word cloud response link. You could skip over the name part and then share how you're feeling. What word is coming to mind in terms of how you are feeling right now? So as we look at our words coming up here, certainly seeing the range, right, of feelings. Appreciate you all being honest and present with that, and certainly also our friends who are commenting in the chat. We see overwhelmed, tired, tense, tired, exhausted, also relaxed, settled, calm, ready, confident, energized. And so just like we've talked about in prior sessions, just the act of acknowledging, recognizing and acknowledging our feeling state is actually a way to become grounded. And again, kind of that stance of being an emotion scientist, not an emotion judge, that we're not looking at this, there's no right or wrong answer. However you feel is how you feel, radical acceptance of our feelings. And so certainly invite you to continue to check in with yourself throughout our session today in terms of how you're feeling and how this content might be helpful in the work that you do. So if we can switch back, Christy. Thank you all very much for participating in that word cloud. So today we're going to be talking about connecting meaningfully with others. And in a lot of ways, this content really connects the dots between all of our past sessions and is a nice way to lead up into our final session in April. And what we all know, I know what you know, and we hear this a lot, is that relationships and that connection to other people is everything. That's where it starts and ends. Relationships and kind of how we relate to other people, this interpersonal connectedness is part of being human, and it is something that starts before we're born and continues. And so in this content today, we kind of want to pull this out and really look at it of, how as professionals we connect meaningfully with others, ways that it's working and maybe ways that it's not working so well, and opportunities not only to strengthen our connections with other people so that we can continue our path to wellness and resilience, but also supporting those people around us, adults and young people, in terms of their connections with other folks. So if we go to the next slide, Christy. So we're going to talk about 5 connection components today, and kind of break these pieces down. There is, of course, overlap, and there are others, but these are the ones that we're going to talk through today. So helpful social supports, service to others, mentorship and role models, and then talking through teacher-student relationships. And I really do feel like relationships are an essential thing for us to talk about in this way. I think that all of us know that relationships are important. I think that often as adults, that we don't spend a lot of time thinking about our relationships and how they are serving us or not serving us. And I think one of the very best ways that we can actually support young people around us and the young people in our school communities is by examining our own relationships so that we better understand what's working and what's not working, because our young friends are looking to us. They're looking at us and trying to understand what it means to be in relationship with other people by watching how we act. And so there's absolutely a part of this that is for us and for us alone, but also absolutely a teaching moment and a learning moment for the people around us. So when we go to the next slide, we're going to start by talking through how we can discern effective support from ineffective support. So this idea that we have all these different kinds of connections, right? And we have different kinds of relationships, and we get support in all kinds of different ways from different people. Some of that support is effective, and some of that support is not so effective. And so in kind of examining that, we can start to consider what is going really well that we want to continue, that we want to feed, that we want to grow, and maybe what's not going so well and is not feeding the kind of our wellness journey and our work with other people, and maybe how that can be shaped. So if we go to the next slide, so when we think about this idea that we have these connections with other people and that we get support and we give support, here we break down this support into kind of these 4 different types. So emotional support, which is validation and empathy. Esteem support, which is also validation, but really brings this out in terms of our ability to inspire ourselves. Informational support, so provides advice when asked or asks permission for providing advice or offering assistance. And then this idea of tangible support, so it gives you resources, removes the stressor. These are all different kinds of support. There are many actions or behaviors that actually cover several of these. But when we kind of pull it apart like this, I think it can help us kind of consider the different types of support that we are receiving from different people in our lives, and also the kind of support that we're giving. So research would actually suggest that when we consider these interpersonal relationships and the kind of support that adults have, that a lot of adults do not get the support they need. So Christy, if we move on to the next slide, research would suggest that 66 to 80% of adults lack effective support. That's a lot. And many of you all have seen some recent headlines focusing on how this idea of connectedness, social support is absolutely linked to quality of life as we continue to get older. And so really, considering this as an important part of how we are and how we're doing is really critical. There are a lot of adults who lack any kind of support, and a lot of adults who would say that they have some, but that it's not all effective, and that even the ineffective support in their lives outweighs the effective support to the point that it actually feels like they're kind of in the negative when it comes to support. And so that is not at all uncommon if you're kind of thinking and having that moment of, oh, wow, like, is this me right now? You're not alone. This is all of us. All of us are in a different space with the support we have and the quality of that support. And so that's part of the reason that we are talking about it today. So if we go to the next slide, so we have different kinds of support, and then we can think about from whom do I receive that support. And so remembering that in any kind of relationship, kind of conversation, that it's what we're getting and also what we're giving. And that every time we engage in some sort of interpersonal kind of conversation, even if it's about support, that we have an opportunity both to advocate for ourselves and to make sure that we step into that space fully and talk about what's going on our end. We also have then an opportunity to share with the other person the kind of support that we hope that they're getting. We can have a conversation about it. So it really is at its essence an interpersonal conversation, which is great. But in all of these different spaces, think about in your life, who do you receive this kind of support from? Who offers emotional support, so validation? Who offers that esteem support, so really helping you recognize the parts of yourself that you really like? Informational support, so advice or maybe not giving advice. And then tangible support, so resources, kind of that really functional kind of support that you can kind of see and clearly look at and hold. So as we move into the next slide, Evelyn is going to talk to us a little bit about connecting through community.
Super, thank you, Melissa. Of course, connecting through community really goes hand in hand with the connecting with friends and other supports that you were just helping us think more about. With connecting through community, you really get to say, what does community look like, and what is community to you? And you get to define that. So, it may be the staff room community or the playground community, or it can be this ready to learn community. We were really fortunate to have some of our team go to NATO Fest this last week and join with one of the USD school communities and really be a part of that bigger community. One of my favorite podcasts right now is called Longer Tables. And I really like that visual of community where it's just adding more to your table. It happens to be around food and food security. But the idea is you can have many different communities, from the small to the national and international, and getting support from all of those can be helpful. Next slide. Thank you. So this is really the idea of we're all in this together. So the idea is by helping serve others, it also helps our own mental health and our own sense of connection. I think hand in hand when we're thinking about these and the good examples that are being shared on screen is the idea of gratitude and really that idea of appreciation, which I know has kind of been a theme through some of our Ready to Learn. What I really want to emphasize with this is nothing is too small to count on this list. When I saw words in our previous slide around just really at this time of year feeling overwhelmed and tired, I think that it's just a common feeling for many of us on this call. So, it counts to, it may be a smile, it may be an opening the door, but all those things count, be it small, medium, or large. Next slide. So with this, it's kind of the thought that you matter to me and I see you. So that's kind of the idea with this idea. So thinking about own ways in your workplace community to bring service. I would challenge you and ask you if you have some examples from service in the workplace to type those in the chat. We'd really love to hear from you. What else would be on this list? I also wanted to emphasize it's never too late. So if you're if it's been a day, it's just been a crazy one, well, the rest of the day or the rest of the week, it's never too late to have some of these experiences with microservices. An example happened before we started going with this session today. Melissa said, "Oh, I like your flower shirt." So just something that small, like certainly increased my happiness and decreased my anxiety. So just really making sure we take a note, even those small things really can make a difference in a colleague's day and then your own day, and getting to share that. I'm seeing some really good examples in the chat. So thank you for sharing that, Jan, taking over duty to a colleague to help them have a break. That's a fantastic example. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide. I think that example is a really good one as we're looking at so the value there with helping a colleague take a break is just like we see on that slide, being a supportive colleague. And then thinking about, that's my value, that's important to me. And again, you get to define that, what your value is. And then how that may play out in behaviors. It could be just like we saw, helping with a break. The other one in the chat there, listening to someone who's having a difficult day, is another wonderful example of service. Just again, all of those count, and all of those go along with your value. And next slide. So with our values, we're really thinking about, with the handful of things that are most important in your values, how do you strive toward actualizing those? Trying to be consistent, having a few examples every day when you can of following that value. And then really having a passion for values. That it's just something that really we do see aligns with well-being and what we're aiming for in this series. I want us to go back to that very first word on the slide, where again, it's striving, not perfection. It's really the whole kind of giving yourself grace, just like you give your students grace and your colleagues grace, knowing you're aiming for those things, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Next slide, please. So kind of what we find goes along with aiming for those values is also trying to limit social comparisons, especially ones that set you up to criticize yourself. Of course, social media is the worst for this. So, in your social media environment, being picky about environments that don't set you up to criticize yourself, and limiting social media when you can, or other situations that really set you up to self-criticize. Next slide, please.
I think one piece, Evelyn, that I would add in
Yes,
here, this is something that someone told me that I just thought is really super brilliant, is the idea of, so we are all, and I'm confident every single one of you all are already doing all kinds of service all the time, right? And sometimes I think it's especially, this time of year when we're really, really tired, that what often can come up for many people is this feeling that you're not being fully appreciated for all that you do and all that you give. And one, that is probably true. And number two, let's take this and see what we can do with it. And so part of it is being mindful and being aware of that feeling. And then this strategy of start to really notice when you're doing the things that you're already doing to serve others. But instead of noticing what you are doing, focus on how it's impacting the people around you. So what happens when you let someone out in front of you in traffic? What happens when you smile at someone? What are they doing in response? And that can be a way to kind of feed, the good energy that comes from that service, and gives and can help fill that hole of gratitude that maybe you feel like you should be getting more of, right? But then you can start to really appreciate yourself and the impact that you're already having. And so just wanted to add that in there. Evelyn, sorry to interrupt.
Oh my gosh, that's perfect. It really reminds me of the exercise that Stephanie did with us last time, where, if you're waiting on traffic and you may be at, or I might have at first the thoughts, oh my gosh, let me in. I'm so frustrated or mad. So just letting those thoughts flow through and those feelings flow through. And I think you're saying really focus in on those ones where when I let someone go ahead of me, what's that feel like and what's that look like? So thank you for that. It's a really good reminder. Um, and again, with this slide, establishing teacher-student relationships, I'd love to hear in the chat. I'm sure folks have just so many wonderful examples of all of these strategies to develop that teacher-student relationship. I think these are especially some ones that we've thought about with younger kids, but I do think they can also carry over with middle and high schoolers. Just really having a genuine interest in your student and some if you both like roller skating or you both like chocolate or whatever it is, just connecting with some common interests. Thinking about banking time. So this is really the idea of special time. So really letting the student take the lead and it be it 5 minutes or 15 minutes, just really following that student's lead. And the teaching there, of course, is just being with the student and just kind of following their lead. Another one there is positive greetings. And again, I'm sure folks on this call have a ton more ideas than I do on how that may look. There's some just, super cute videos out about different ways you see teachers and educators greeting students. But it's just the idea that, whatever it is, and however you do that yourself, it's just sending the message, hey, you're special with that greeting. Setting expectations, of course, goes a lot with that. And this one was a new one to me. I hadn't heard of tootling before, but I just love the idea. So instead of tattling, really reinforcing tootling and having, the norm for the day. How often can you say something positive about someone else in your class? I know it is the teacher first modeling that and other educators modeling, but having the students really practice catching your friends being good and saying that out loud. So again, I'm going to try that one myself. And I think that I'm done with that slide. Thanks, Christy.
Fantastic. Thanks, Evelyn. And I really appreciate this comment here. Finding a supportive coworker takes time. And that it can be difficult, and absolutely. I just want to validate that what we're talking about in terms of, any of these pieces we're talking about are actually a lot harder in practice than it is to say it out loud. And so, developing friendships, developing relationships, especially good, positive, two-way relationships with people that we trust and that have value alignment with is really hard. My experience has been that it gets harder as we get older. And so, whereas we start out and we have all of these social structures that kind of push us together, as we get older, it becomes harder to do that. And there are other kinds of structures that are often, pushing us together or pulling us apart. And so that it does take time. And that is part of it, is taking, little bites at a time, and building that up. And also even just knowing what you're doing when you're doing it, right? So realizing that, sometimes it is okay to show up early to a meeting and just chat with your coworkers. My brain always goes into, is this an efficient use of time? I should be doing more work, like that space, but actually it is good to connect with other people because we are humans and the connection is important. And so part of what we're doing is laying the groundwork potentially for that good connection down the road. But regardless of whether that produces sort of that outcome or not, it is just fundamentally good for us to talk to each other and to engage in that kind of exchange. So I really appreciate that comment in there too. So connecting meaningfully activities. So there are a lot of different activities out there. Evelyn, I love the ones that you mentioned. And absolutely there's there are ways that that can be framed for our young children all the way up through adults. One of the kind of growth mindset sorts of language pieces that I have borrowed is this idea of course, kind of adding yet to the end of anything that's an I can't. So I can't do this yet. I won't make it that far yet. Or adding without help to the end. So I can't do this without help, or I can't do this alone. But the other one is replacing have to with I get to. So I have to go to the grocery. I get to go to the grocery, and just reframing that language does shift your perspective. I sometimes get irritated by it because I'm like, wait, I get to take the trash out? Come on. But like, I do get to take the trash out. I mean, there is a frame, and it helps us, shift to say, okay, there is something to be grateful for in this moment, and certainly grateful in terms of our exchange with other folks. So some other activities, and we'll send this out in the email that comes out with our session recording. These are 3 additional ones. So Coal and Diamonds, Fill a Bucket, Building Mentorship. These are all more geared towards adults, but absolutely can be adapted for any age range. Coal and Diamonds is really this idea, kind of where we started, of identifying support, types of support, sources of support, and really trying to sort of determine to what degree is this support coal that has to be squeezed a lot to really produce something sparkly and shiny, or is it already, a diamond, and just recognizing those differences. I find it helpful to kind of think about these sorts of activities as, this is work. It's hard work, but it can also be the start of a longer process. So nobody is suggesting that, we change our lives overnight and change all of our support structures, but even just thinking about, okay, who is supportive in my life? What kind of support do they provide? What's working, what's not? Okay, and that's enough. Maybe that's enough for today. And then tomorrow you think about it a little bit more. But these kinds of activities can be helpful in really thinking through some of those pieces. Filling a bucket is exactly what it sounds like. And so thinking about who fills your bucket, whose bucket do you fill? Kind of what are the pieces there? And then also this idea of when someone is filling your bucket, and we kind of tend to think that is a positive thing, what else are they shoving in there at the same time? And how is that working out? And so we all know these friends or coworkers, you are in a tough spot, you're asking for help, and they give you help, and then they give you all their problems too. And so just thinking about what that means, right? And so from a scientist, not a judgy place, but a scientist place, what that feels like, and what that costs, and whether that's what you want to invest in or not, and then what that means. And again, not that there's any right or wrong, but just a consideration of, okay, what does this look like? Is this working? Because it is shaping your behavior already, right? We all know that even when we don't think about it, it's shaping the things that we do. And so if we can be more mindful about it, we can be more purposeful. And then we can also see kind of those outcomes in terms of our well-being and our interpersonal relationships. And then being really purposeful about building mentorship. I think a lot of times we think about mentorship as something that we do with high school age kids. High school age kids need mentors and role models. Think about career pathways. Maybe in college, you go, sit in and watch what someone does for a job. But in reality, we all need mentors and role models for our entire lives. And it can be work related. It can be personally related. Who is your relationship role model? Who is your having fun role model? Who could mentor you in a hobby? Can you keep it a hobby and not make it into a side hustle, right? Like those kinds of pieces, and gathering folks around us who have that value alignment, who we can learn from and continue to learn from across the different areas. And absolutely that this can be professional, personal, or both. But I do think it's helpful, and there's the activity that we'll send out, kind of walks through thinking about that very carefully. We want to make sure that we are surrounding ourselves with at least some folks we can continue to learn from, and who can continue to learn from us for our entire lives. And that's part of what healthy development and aging looks like. So if we go to the next slide. So we've talked about several kind of strategies for how this might translate to work with young people, but these are some additional ones. So kind of what Evelyn was saying before with the tootling strategy of, catching the positives and catching the connections. And this can be hard. It's easier when we're trying to catch our young friends, being quiet or paying attention to us. That's a little bit easier than it is to catch the connections between, especially between same age peers with youth, but it can be really valuable. So even just starting first, just to notice. And so don't say anything, just notice and notice, wow, here's a connection happening. Oh, here's a missed opportunity. Here's when this friend really could have extended this offer that would have strengthened that connection and they didn't. How come? Do they know how to? Right. And just noticing, kind of being that scientist, that observer, and then think about ways that you can step in and provide whatever support you can, either in the connection or just noticing when it happens. Thinking about what this means in your space with the populations you work with. Of course, the way that we say this to first graders is not going to sound the same as what we would say to 10th graders. But there is a way to acknowledge and to celebrate the connection that's happening between peers or the connection that's happening between youth and other trusted adults. And that can be really valuable too. I think that, and I know that we've all heard this, but this idea that, as kids get older, we tend to step back, right? That's part of what happens with the development, is that as, children, go into adolescence, they're looking more to their peer group. And that is super cool. They still desperately want and need positive relationships with adults, including their family. And so acknowledging that, and that connection, and that, again, we're just doubling down on the relatedness and the relationship piece when we can. Modeling grounding, right? So modeling it, practicing it, doing whatever makes sense and whatever you feel good about, even if it's just taking a deep breath, right? And doing that in the moment with young people and talking out loud about it. So just do what you already are probably doing, but just do it out loud. Say, I'm going to take a deep breath so I can calm my body down and be present, and then do it, right? And just kind of doing that sort of theory of mind, talking out loud piece, so that then that people can see what's happening inside of your brain. And then you get full credit for all of it, which is great. There's a video, and again, this will be in the slides that are sent out to the live link. But Tazin has a great "How does grounding feel?" Again, the idea that grounding is a useful practice for people of all ages, very young to adults. And certainly when our young friends are in that adolescent phase, it can be really hard to frame things in a way that makes sense, that connects. And so a great video that even just describes what it feels like. And again, the same thing is not going to work for everybody. And so find something that you feel good about, that you can pitch, and then go from there. There's lots of videos, lots of tools, lots of scripts of things that can be helpful and to rely on. And that's one there. This other idea of the grounding exercise that we did, do that with a tree, have students draw a tree, and then kind of the different roots. There's all kinds of ways to connect this to the content in the classroom that can be really powerful. And then asking students about their role models, heroes, 20 questions. Again, even our, some of our most shy, kind of reserved students or adults really like when people want to know something about them, and they like talking about themselves and sharing those pieces. Sometimes that's harder, but everybody wants to be seen, and everybody wants to feel like they are being seen and present when they are present. And so finding different ways to do that in the classroom, one-on-one, depending on what your work looks like. So our second and last word cloud. And it's on, there we go. What is one way you can increase that support that you have? So I'm thinking about what we've talked about. What is one way you can increase the support that you have? So if you can click on the word cloud link and share your responses, we'll take a look and see what brilliant kinds of things you all come up with. Ask. Oh, I love that. And even in one word, that's what I was just thinking about is like, this is kind of tricky to summarize in just one word or just a few words. And so ask. Yeah. Here's your fair warning. As a clinician, I have incredible wait time. Um, so ask what other kinds of, be honest. Yes. Love it. Be honest. Be honest with ourselves, be honest with other people. Um, I think that our interpersonal relationships and being really honest with ourselves and each other is really challenging. Um, and being able to look at that with humility and courage and just being honest about it, right? Give, absolutely. So give, serve, kind of other, for sure, right? So it's this balance of how do we think about ourselves in this interpersonal relationship and take care of ourselves, and then also make sure that we're doing what we need to balance that out and taking care of others. Giving, asking, being intentional, so true. So many things I feel like happen because I've been voluntold, right? And then I do something. So being intentional, right? And so if just recognizing it, just no, right? No is the full sentence. You can say no, thank you if you want to be super polite, but setting good boundaries and being intentional about your time. It is our most precious resource, our time. And oftentimes we are tossing it around relationships, being open, connections, purpose. I love it. Tell the truth. Yes, I love the give piece. Find. Giving it a chance. And I'm not sure if this was what the intention was with this word, but taking chances, right? Finding yourself in new spaces and places with new people and just taking a chance. It's amazing what happens if you just talk to people and ask people about themselves and then tell them something about you. And I really do believe it gets harder as we get older, in a lot of ways. And so taking a chance and seeing what happens. I love this, having patience. Yes, absolutely. Being mindful. See, you all totally reinforced my longer wait time. So thank you. There's my gratitude. Thank you for participating and also making me feel like the.
I have to apologize. The reason why they were delayed is my fault. I accidentally sent that message only to one person, the link.
Oh,
so,
nice. Okay.
So you're like, why weren't they responding? I am imperfect.
Hey, you know what? Everybody is imperfect. That is the truth. And I love the responses regardless of what it was. But all really great pieces here. And absolutely, in addition to, you all looking at how you can support or increase the support that you have, please feel free to reach out to us around how this translates not just for you, but also the context that you're working with. Relationships, it just sounds so easy, and it feels like so much of content in schools is wrapped into this relationship first. The relationships matter. Don't forget the relationship. And so, yes, all of us nod and say, agree, got it, yep, we're on board. It's really hard to do that. So ask for help. We would love to talk through this, especially if you are working with a young friend who is really hard to connect with and also is maybe the one who pushes all your buttons. And that can be really hard too. For people who are empathic and do work around connecting with other people, particularly adults who connect with kids. When we find kids that we really struggle to connect with, it can be really, really challenging. We would love to problem solve with you around that and talk about solutions. So thank you all for participating in that. So just walking through our key takeaways on the next slide. So understanding the difference between effective and ineffective social support that absolutely showed up in the word cloud, in terms of being honest, asking, right? So this is all interpersonal work. that can be done, and to recognize the difference between kind of what's working really well and what's not working so well. Talking about practical ways to support others and supporting ourselves, and discussing practical ways to adapt those strategies in the classroom. And so again, all of the meaningful relationship piece and those pieces in today's session. So with that, want to remind you all that we are, our next and final session is, I probably said the date wrong earlier, didn't I? It's April 6th from 12 to 1. And resources and materials will be sent to your email. And then Christy, if we go back one slide, we do have a few minutes. If folks have questions or comments, we'd be happy to talk those through. So does anybody have questions or any pearls of wisdom to share as we are wrapping up our session today? Evelyn, anything you wanted to add? Robert, any other mistakes you want to own here with our group today?
No, I just wanted to say that when you ask the slide on what causes stress, it's getting the chat link in the right order at the right time to the right people. So.
Well, it's a great example of how everything just works out.
There you go.
It looks like we had a question is, I don't believe we have an Instagram page. I think it's the Facebook page, but it's good to hear there might be some varied interests. So thanks for the question.
And Juan brought up that it's important to give the appropriate support. You have to appropriately identify the needs.
Can you say that again, Robert?
He says to give the appropriate support, we need to identify the needs, I think. It's like if you have to support someone, you have to understand what they need.
Got it. Yes. Absolutely. Right. So, and sometimes I think for us, right, that it's hard for us to seek support because sometimes we might not even be aware of what we need. And so kind of making, again, that it's all interpersonal. The solution is the challenge, is the solution is the challenge, right? It has to happen interpersonally. And so asking, trying to better understand what people need. I have a great friend and colleague who every time I have an interaction with him and I ask him a question, he will respond by saying, are you asking me right now because you want me to answer? Or do you want me to encourage you to, figure out what the answer is? He is coaching me to help me get what I need out of the interpersonal, kind of connection there. Being able to sit down and say, I don't need any advice. I really just want someone to commiserate with me. That's okay. Okay, now I'm very clear on what you need from me and what maybe I need from you. So I love that, being super clear about the needs. Okay, well, absent any other questions in the chat, want to again thank you all for coming today. We will look forward to seeing you in April. Please reach out if you have questions. We'd be happy to talk further, and really appreciate you all being here this time of year. Very busy. Have a good March. We're here to help if we can be helpful, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everybody.